Welcome to The Deal, a podcast dedicated to maximizing name, image, and likeness opportunities. You'll hear from student athletes, coaches, and athletic administrators on how NIL partnerships can impact individuals and the schools they attend. It all comes down to making the best deal.
Well, welcome back to The Deal, which is the NAIA NIL podcast where student athletes, administrators, and coaches can learn about NIL deals, the benefits, and how to get started. My name is Paige Salveter. I'm the VP of Marketing and Athletics Communications at the NAIA National Office here in downtown Kansas City. And this podcast is brought to you by our partner, OpenDoors, the world's leading athlete influencer platform. And today, we have Charles Thompson joining us from one of our NAIA campuses at LSUS in Shreveport, Louisiana. And today we are going to learn how NIL has been a part of Coach Thompson's DNA before NIL even passed legislation. Welcome, Coach Thompson, and we are happy to have you here today on the episode of The Deal.
Welcome. How are you? Thank you.
Well, I'm doing all right. I just would love for you to start by telling us a little bit about yourself, your sport, and your success with your team in coaching bass fishing in LSU.
I'm Coach Charles Thompson. I'm the bass fishing coach at LSU Shreveport. We are actually a pretty good team this year. We're a small school, but we're a pretty good team. We're actually ranked 6th in the country right now. Very, very happy for that. My situation at the school is I'm a volunteer contract coach. This is kind of like my give back to my community and the school.
Well, my understanding is that you are a very successful program. Obviously, you're 6th in the country. When you say that, about how many other bass fishing teams are there around the country?
There's over 200, 250 to 300 schools in the country.
So you compete not just NAIA, right? You compete with NCAA, D1, D2, D3 schools?
Correct. There's no divisions. So NCAA, NAIA, D2, D3, even junior colleges. And also there's some collegiate / trade schools in there also that have the ability to compete in fishing.
Very nice. Well, this is really unique. We've had a couple of coaches on. You're our first fishing coach, and you're the first fishing coach I've ever met, actually, in the NAIA. So it's very nice to meet you. I would just love to learn a little bit about, and I'm sure our listeners would too, about what is your strategy and how you support a sport with LSU, since you get limited funding, I would say, with your institution. So how do you kind of start out with, supporting that sport? And because you'd mentioned name, image, and likeness before it even became cool.
The school, actually, it was their idea, the school and the athletic director's idea to even bring on a coach. There are some facilities across the country that don't have a actual college fishing coach. So it was kind of the child of their ideas to even bring me on. They saw that I was in the community, and it was really going to be a plus for both sides. So the way that we are able to support the bass fishing team and support the school is by connecting with businesses across the community. It's a mirrored image, a benefit for both sides. We get to represent these sponsors across the city, and the kids are also able to benefit from that sponsorship because, traveling for fishing is very expensive. We're a small team of 16 guys, but we have 8 boats. There's 2 kids to each boat, and we have to travel sometimes to Florida, to Missouri. It gets pretty expensive, but making those connections, it propels the school forward by getting that sponsorship, and also the school propels the young anglers forward in their name, image, and likeness. Their image and likeness has been a part of them also in high school, just like other sports, and that translates into how they even get recruited for college bass fishing.
Do you have to use some of your sponsorship money to even pay for college scholarships, or how does the sponsorship dollars and how you work with your sponsors pay for the program? Student athletes, can you kind of describe a little bit about just what that looks like?
One of the biggest benefits for LSU Shreveport is that it's a very reasonably cost school. That is in comparison to some of the other schools around us is a scholarship all by itself. So when they come on campus, they have academic scholarships. And then true enough, like you were just saying, the sponsorship dollars are able to give sponsorships to not necessarily to each individual angler per se, but as a team and as a whole. That's how we are able to afford a lot of the travel and different the entry fees and different things of that nature. There are some scholarships outside of fishing, and maybe one or two inside of fishing for those elite anglers, but mainly the funding from those businesses and the things of that sort go to the funding of the program.
So when you think about just athletics in general, right? Everyone has to have sponsors. Everybody has to have partners. Maybe tell us a little bit about, your strategy on how you foster those relationships. How do you go about getting the different sponsors, and what do they get out of being a sponsor for your program with bass fishing at LSUS?
In my full-time job, I'm actually in medical device sales. So even in that job, relationships are key. And that's how we've been successful with this program, is because the relationships are key. We recruit that way. We run our program that way. So when we go out and get some of those sponsorship deals, it's based 100% on relationships. They buy you more than they buy, the actual thing that you're selling or the idea. One of the return on investment we're able to give to these businesses and sponsorships, our fishing jersey is here. Our fishing jersey,
Nice.
We're able to give spots on our fishing jersey. We're able to also give spots and different things. We wrap our boats to give spots that way. The school itself has a fishing page that we're able to give website spots. We represent them that way. One of the things is we see as a lot of the things go to social media and internet, that's their commercial. That boat drives up and down the highway. That jersey, we're on stage, sometimes live TV nationally, which is a little different than other sports. Bass fishing is a national sport. Not only are they reaching our community, but they're reaching also other communities with these boat wraps, driving from here to Florida with the jersey in tournaments in Florida and different things like that. And on live TV, either social media, some of them actually are broadcast on FS1 and different other programs and that sort.
How has the passing of legislation with name, image, and likeness, and of course the NAIA being the first to pass it, how has that changed how you maybe do your recruiting and dollar amounts? Are you able to benefit more now that the legislation has passed? Are you seeing different benefits of it?
We do see a little more benefit because now they've validated pretty much what we've been doing all this time. We've been using name, image, and likeness, like we were saying earlier, since we started bass fishing. But before, it's really been a discount on certain products. We have a bunch of fishing baits, rods and reels and different things like that. Now it's gone to a situation where they understand our reach. They understand how our return on investment for them. They understand how we can represent them to our community, which is somewhat untouched, adjacent to the stick and ball sports. Fishing is a sport that the CEO can actually take part in, and also the person on the floor, floor level can take part in. There's a financial difference, but it's the same playing field, and they can play also on that playing field in comparison to the elite pros. Sometimes they can fish tournaments against some of the pros. So it's a situation where everybody can kind of touch base and have a part in an elite level. And I think that's what really translates. That's what really gets them to say, hey, I can give this much to this team or this much to a program that I can understand what's going on. I can understand how to play it because I play it on the weekend also.
Well, tell me a little bit about just your student athletes in general. We've talked about your program and your partners, but have any of your student athletes actually benefited from their own name, image, and likeness? And so tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
I actually had a phone call with one of my anglers in preparation for this podcast. So I have an angler who has a rod sponsorship that he gets, not as much monetary because we are still a small school and that return on investment still has to validate us. He gets a small $200 to $300 financial representation. He gets somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 rods a year. When you're talking about a rod that we're using at this elite level, that rod is equivalent to 15 baseball bats. They're like $300 $200 a piece. So he gets 15 of those to use through the year in case of any technique needs, differentiates it up, different types of areas of types of fish, smallmouth, largemouth, different techniques requirements. So that's a very big, for a college student, that's a very big plus for him. He doesn't have to spend that money that he doesn't have on equipment.
So I'm a tennis player, right? So I'm thinking, okay, I have 2 tennis rackets. They're exactly the same, and I break a string and I keep using them for years. So what you're saying is the equipment needs in bass fishing is a lot more expensive than for where you use different types of salt water versus just right.
Well, we mainly fish this all freshwater, but there's different types of fish and different types of conditions. So it's smallmouth bass may be a situation where he's throwing a smaller bait, so he needs a more limber rod. Largemouth bass in the South, they grow a lot bigger. We have better fishing, my opinion. but we're fishing around grass and we're fishing around trees, so you need a little more sturdier rod that doesn't have as much bend or whatever the case. So, different techniques. And then, through the travels, they're still college kids. They're going to drop them. They're going to break them, different things of that sort. That's how that kind of comes into play, where a little bit different than tennis, but still in the same arena.
Of course, I guess you're talking about all this. I think about my childhood crazy story. So I actually grew up across the street from Johnny Morris when he owns Bass Pro Shop, right? Well, he was not Bass Pro Shop. He actually started with a small tackle shop in Springfield, Missouri, where I was born and raised for a bit. But just think about the growth of that. Is Bass Pro Shop by chance a sponsor of yours?
We do have a very good relationship. We do have a Bass Pro Shop here in Bossier City. We have a very good relationship with them. And it sings to the song of why I'm doing it. It's in the community. So, they have different events at Bass Pro, and our anglers are able to go over and do lessons and different things like that, help with the Cast for Kids days and different things of that sort. And alluding to your story, wouldn't you like to live across the street from Johnny Morris today?
Right. No, I wouldn't be able to afford that neighborhood.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
I don't think any of us would. But,
no.
Yeah, so our connection with Bass Pro, they help us run tournaments, in the community. They help us with some of our branding. They offer high school and college discounts at times for us to buy equipment again. That's a very big thing for us. It's a lot more expensive than a lot of people think, and they know. We're the 2023 golf,
Okay.
It's growing that fast, and it's pretty close to that expensive.
So I have a specific question, since you're a coach, obviously, and this podcast is to help educate NAIA coaches, athletics administrators, student athletes. But what would you want to share with other coaches like you to help them benefit with name, image, and likeness?
Relationships. Teaching, we always want to be mentor to our athletes. When you're a mentor to the athlete, you're teaching them and prepare them for the next level or what they're dealing with. So the more that we can include them on some of these sponsorship deals and communications, and the more we can connect them to the community, to the people that are heads of these sponsors and heads of these companies, the better we're preparing them for what they're going to step into. So my advice would be, and that's something that I try to do, is include them in the sponsorship, because a lot of times the relationship is the athlete. They know the guy who runs that company, and they know the guy, and that's a sponsorship or a connection that we wouldn't have without them. Obviously, we can't utilize every student, because we know students of the day, based on your recruiting, based on those relationships that they have and relationships you have with that angler. Take the time and utilize their relationships and include them on that situation. You're going to prepare them to be better businessmen and women. Hopefully, they will appreciate the efforts of really what you're doing, and they understand that it's not just a cut and dry situation. So that's one of the things that I do, trying to move this, because it's going so fast. It's moving so fast. So any legitimate help that I can get, because you're not going to be able to use every angler, but using those anglers and teaching them, preparing them for the next level is, I think is the biggest thing. You will gain those relationships that they have that you have never been able to reach.
So you had mentioned recruiting. So do you use name, image, and likeness for your recruiting then?
That's one of the biggest things that, with social media, you have to look at their social media, and in fishing, all the way to the elite level and the professional level, they're still using NIL. Fishing is still a pay-to-play sport. So they have to use their name, image, and likeness to get sponsorships, even at that level. So that's the connection, the college to the pro level. We don't graduate into a contract that's $100, $200, $300, $1 million, $2 million. We graduate to a NIL deal that the sponsorship knows us. We have a sponsor with Hook. It's a fishing brand, a very popular fishing brand. When they graduate to the next level, Hook knows this particular angler that fished at LSUS, and Hook will help them pay their entry fees for these tournaments. And so now they're not starting their professional career behind the 8 ball. And to continue on with that, with the LSUS, the reasonable tuition of LSUS also helps them. So they don't have student loan debt, because fishing is a pay-to-play sport.
Nice.
Access to a great education at a reasonable cost, and great support from the school and an athletic program. It's a great thing all the way around. And yeah, I'm kind of pushing for the program here. I'm doing this for my community. I'm doing this for the anglers. I'm doing this to get these guys ready to better our world. And it sounds like a commercial, but I mean, it's 100%.
It's great. It's great.
100% truth. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as I think about, our partner, which I mentioned at the beginning, that OpenDoors is our name, image, and likeness partner. And their whole thing is to make sure that they're connecting not only themselves with the student athletes, but the student athletes really giving them a platform to connect with, like you just said, partners and sponsors and people who believe in them and what they're doing. Have you used OpenDoors, and or do you have any examples of student athletes that potentially are on OpenDoors, or where you're seeing them benefit through their name, image, and likeness on your team?
I do know of OpenDoors. I did a little bit of research, trying to make sure. I was listening to a lot of the podcasts. I think it's very close to what I'm trying to do, and I think it will help us in the long run. I think that's a decision above me to move to that, but I definitely can see how we will be able to utilize that in the future. Moving so fast, and fishing is not an actual sanctioned sport by NAIA, even though a lot of NAIA schools have fishing teams. So we're still kind of treading the water, kind of, no pun intended, but trying to figure out how we move forward. But tools like OpenDoors is definitely going to be one that we can look at to give us a structure or a guideline to see what tomorrow looks like. I think it's a great deal. It's definitely something that I think, with my little research, I'm pretty sure my athletic director has looked into it, because I know some of the fishing teams like Campbellsville, OpenDoors is actually in their campus, but not so much connected with the fishing team where they have deals. I don't know if they have any deals in the fishing team. So we're communicating, also those coaches communicating and trying to see, what it looks like at another campus, so we can replicate that here and give examples for the athletic director to make the proper decision to see what tomorrow looks like.
So one of the things, just for our listeners and for you, Charles, is that as I think about OpenDoors, even if a school isn't signed up with OpenDoors, every single one of your student athletes can actually create a profile at no charge. So that's something that we want to educate everyone. All student athletes, NAIA student athletes, and any division can sign up with OpenDoors. The institution itself, LSU, could actually sign up, and we actually, with our partnership, it's extremely cost effective, and it also takes all the bureaucracy and the paperwork and the do's and the don'ts of what they need to do. So if that's something that your athletics director is interested in, I would encourage them to definitely get a meeting with OpenDoors. Of course, I know Lucas, and he's fantastic. And it's amazing when I've listened to other athletics directors, they didn't realize how economical it was. And through our partnership with the NAIA, we've actually made it more economical. And that was a part of why we wanted to partner with them, because they're making it extremely easy for our athletics administrators and just taking all that, time. People in the athletics world don't have a lot of extra time, right? I mean, you're a volunteer, you also work full time, wearing multiple hats. So I would encourage anyone who's listening to definitely start creating your profile. And if you're an athletics department that's not connected with them yet, to do so, because I've heard multiple times that it helps with recruiting, helps with your bottom line of obviously your equipment and things like that. So something to definitely look into.
The little bit that I've been able to explore through that, it definitely does have a very good guideline and structure. Anything to minimize logistics on our
Absolutely.
part. It's a big plus. Big plus.
Well, Coach, is there anything else, lasting words that you'd like to share with our listeners on how great you've been utilizing name, image, and likeness and the future of it, and maybe anything different that you'll do knowing about just some of the things we talked about today?
It was a great interview. I thank you very much for asking me to be on. Doing the research definitely opened my eyes to a lot of things that I can move forward with, and interested to see what tomorrow brings.
Sounds great. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening, and tune back into an episode of The Deal.